Welcome to another episode of Canopy Practice Success. I'm your host, Casey Brothers, and I'm here with Will Hill. Will, go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners.
Well, thank you, Casey. I appreciate you guys having me on today. And to the listeners, I am Will Hill, and I've been helping accounting firms with their growth and processes for the better part of 25 years, which makes me old, Casey. That's all it does. And it's kind of disappointing. But I have my own consulting practice, and I like to live at the intersection of people and process, as they say. And, we can sit in the laboratory, define all kinds of processes and systems well, then we sprinkle in those pesky humans, and that's when all the fun starts to
Those
happen. And
pesky
so
humans.
I love getting involved with that. That attitude may be jaded by 3 kids. I don't know. We'll see.
I love it. Well, and you've got, tell us a little bit more about your experience because you've got quite an experience that makes you very qualified for the accounting space. And then you've pivoted recently in the last several years.
Yeah. So I spent the better part of 21 years working at Thomson Reuters. Did a lot with their training consulting group and working with firms implementing software, doing business workflow consulting, helping them with transitioning their commercial models to be centered on advisory, that sort of thing. Uh, Spent some time over there in product marketing and product management as well, and then I left to go on my own and just really helping firms and firm owners that feel stuck and saying, how do I go forward? Being a bit of ears to the profession and trying to speak from what I've seen in other firms. Physically been in over 400 firms over the years, KC, and just kind of seen a lot of operational things. And it's been great to be deeply involved with firms, put some things into motion, see the impact, and just be a small part of their success story is just very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, would you say you're closer to them in this consulting position rather than you were in your position at Thomson Reuters?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And and nothing to knock the old role, the old company in any way. It's just you have a different opportunity
Right.
on your own, and you can get deeper in a lot of areas. And it's been fun to do that.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I ask is because when you're closer to it, you end up seeing your personal impact more and seeing how the firm changes. Whereas, you can be at a company, sell a product, even selling a service at a company, but you're not following that firm throughout their journey. And I'm sure you
Right.
get to follow these firms through their journey way more, which I'm sure is just like so fun to see them transform.
And it's great to be able to then go back to the next firm and say, hey, I've seen some of the challenges you're going to face 6 months, 9 months, a year from now. How do we prepare for those in advance? Are there some obstacles that we can help you avoid
Yes.
as I've had to navigate them with other firms? So,
Yeah, I mean, and to that, right, you can appease them, I guess, in the sense like you're not alone. You're not the first one I've
mhm.
seen to go through this. And even the way you said that, though, was like, hey, I foresee what you're going to experience because I do. I see what you're going through now is similar to other things I have personally watched firms go through and abandon and move past and grow beyond. One of those things is getting into advisory, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, you chuckled a little. Why?
it did a lot of work with that while I was at Thomson with the Practice Forward program with firms, KC, and then continue to help firms even now just help them redefine what it means to them and continue to evolve and say, what are the advisory opportunities in front of me now? And if we position our firms to take advantage of those, how does that look from a practical perspective? And what does that mean opportunity by opportunity? And what does that mean in terms of replication, growth and expansion within the firm? And then, Casey, how does that layer against what the firm's goals really are, right? Because there could be some opportunities that mean, hey, we got to go hire 12 more people and go chase after this. But if the firm goals are, I want to balance how much time I'm spending with my family and how much time we're spending with work, that's going to be opposed to it. So is that the right opportunity for them to go chase? maybe not, right? So
Do you
as I
come
work
across
with
that often,
firms,
where they have
yeah,
a goal and then a strategy that contradicts each other?
yeah, I do run into that, Casey, because we don't think about those things in combination with one another. We think about them very separately. And so a firm owner will say, hey, this is why I'm in this business, to do X, Y, and Z. This is what I want to achieve. And they put that kind of over in a box and don't connect, what am I doing on a day-to-day basis? I think a lot of that today comes from, there's so much work that's out there.
Yeah.
No one's lacking for opportunity right now. And so I'm trying not to drown. There's a lot of tech change. There's a I can only assume we're going to see a swell of regulation change towards the end of this year with the new administration in place, right? So there's a lot of change being forced on us. I'm trying to stay afloat, and we get focused in that area, and we don't often cross those boxes with one another. I think it's really important as you look at, what am I trying to wrestle through? How does that fit with what I'm trying to achieve? Because that's going to change. Do I want to actually wrestle through this, or do I want to punt and run away from it? Some things we can't run away from. Or there's an opportunity from a positive perspective. There's an opportunity sitting there. Do I chase that? How aggressively do I chase that? That has to be in line with, am I hitting my goals? What do my goals look like? And we've got to be able to bring those conversations together. I spend a lot of time with firms in the mix of those conversations.
Do you have an example or story you could share that kind of um, connects those dots for our listeners?
Sure. So I had a firm that I'm working with come back from a conference and said, hey, I think we need to hire some more people because all of our friends are hiring people. And I said, all right, remind me again what the goal of your firm is right now. Oh, we got 3 young kids, want to spend some time with them. Okay, fantastic. Hey, didn't we just fire somebody? Yeah, we never should have hired them. That was a pain. We're much better off without that individual. Now, sometimes those are about the individuals, not about the fact of hiring more. But then we talked about, what does it mean administratively to hire more people? And while the work may be there today to go hire one more, the real benefit and margin will come with client growth.
Mm,
What is it that takes the most time? Is it really the execution of the work, or is it the management of the client relationships? And are you going to hire someone that's going to manage the client relationships or execute the work? And
mm.
what does that mean for flexibility with your kids' sports and your desire to take a vacation here and there? Um, so after that conversation, then it was a matter of, hey, look at your revenue for last year. Did you hit enough to achieve both the short-term goals as well as continue to put away towards your long-term goals? If the answer is yes, I'm going to challenge, do you really need to hire right now, right? Or are we just concerned about what everyone else is doing and what we're hearing from the market, right? Especially in the small to mid-size, firm space. There's a lot of noise out there, and sometimes we feel pressure to do things. But really, when you're the owner of a small and mid-sized firm, you have something that others don't have, and you've got flexibility and choice,
Yeah.
right? I think
How
that's
do
where
you
the
define
advisory
a
realm comes into play.
yeah? How do you define a small to mid-sized company?
I'm gonna run with less than 20 FTEs, including owner, just for
Okay, so
fun.
that's across all roles, not just
Yeah.
accountants. Okay.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
sorry, and then you touched on another topic I wanted to talk to you about, which is advisory. We've mentioned it a little
Yeah.
bit, right? Um, there's a sentiment that I'm aware of that, I mean, we chatted a little bit before we actually hit record, about there not being a great definition of advisory. But also like it's talked about all the time and encouraged all the time. Um, how how do people get into it? How do they make it more effective? What does good advisory look like?
Well, I'm glad everyone's here for the next 5 hours while we answer that question, Casey. Um,
Need a master class on what does
uh,
good advisory look like. Okay.
yeah. So one, I think as we've evolved through the past 10 to 15 years, we've kind of moved past this, hey, I know what advisory is. It's everything that's not compliance. It's forward looking, not backward looking. And so people have become kind of comfortable with that definition. But I think that there's still some quiet unsettledness around what does the execution look like, right? And I think we also need to define a little bit around, do I have an advisory based client relationship, or am I performing an advisory service in the moment, right? And those two are different. There's a lot of firms, almost every firm is going to offer advisory services. Not every firm has an advisory based relationship, right? And we can look at that from either the commercial end of how things are structured and what the client sees when they pay, right? Typically we would say the client sees a one-to-one factor of, I'm paying one monthly fee for everything I'm getting from you because you're my advisor, as opposed to a one-to-many. I'm paying the tax fee, I'm paying the accounting fee, I'm paying the payroll fee, right? And now you're not really my advisor, you're my service provider in those different areas. So there's the commercial end of that we look at from the relationship. There's also the time and connectivity end, right? And not that I want to count hours, but if I've got a real advisory relationship, I have to have space for conversation. And so where in our relationship is there time to speak with one another? If it's just when I'm giving you the tax return, or just when I need your bank statements, you got a problem, right? It's not a real advisory relationship. How on earth can I be inside of your head if we don't ever talk?
Yeah.
So I think that we need to continue to do well at saying, how do I structure these advisory relationships so that I know when the advisory services are needed, or I can see when they're needed ahead of time and position the client to execute on them, right?
Yeah.
So I've got to have some advisory services. Most firms have that, but I have to have really advisory-based relationships to position those services well. And that just has a lot of impact on the commercial structure of the relationship, how we spend time, maybe roles and responsibilities of who's doing what within the firm on the client account. And so that's where we start to spread that net of where are you focused in advisory goes a lot of different ways. And then we see a lot of the technology coming in as well, Casey, to say, hey, if you're an advisory firm, we can help you. And that can mean a lot of different things. Generally, it means efficiency to give you time to do advisory stuff. And that all sounds good until we don't have an internal plan of how we're going to use that time, right? And then we're just, all of a sudden, it's a capacity relief lever as opposed to a growth mechanism or a client relationship deepening mechanism.
Yes, I think that deserves repeating. It becomes a capacity relief lever as opposed to
A
a
growth
growth.
opportunity, yeah,
Yes.
and a client relationship deepening opportunity.
Yes. Okay. So as you were talking, I'm thinking we've talked about small to mid-large firm or to mid firms. We can talk about large firms as well. But if we're talking about a 20-person firm that covers all sorts of roles, right? I would hope there's at least one office admin, um, probably a couple partners, lots of junior accountants, people rising through the ranks, right? Um, is there any other type of role that I'm missing that you commonly see?
Keep going. Let's see what else you got, Casey.
Okay. Well, I mean that's where I'm ending because now my question
Yep.
is who's offering the advisory services? Is it
Mm-hmm.
because it's not uncommon that I see, and I don't talk to firms as often as you do. Partners still in the grind, the day-to-day output of accounting services.
Mm-hmm.
When okay, is that where you have like a little team put together, like a squad, a tiger team, whatever you want to call it, of like we work together to provide the services, and then I as the partner or someone as the team lead delivers the advisory, or do you all get into advisory, or what does that look like?
Yeah. I think that there needs to be a point person per client on the relationship that also owns the advisory, at least the advisory positioning. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to be the one that would deliver every single advisory piece, right? So we
Okay.
may have someone in our firm that's an expert with M&A activity, and so I'm going to bring this. Say, hey, you talked about growth. You've mentioned this other one. You want to look at buying your competitor down the street. We can help you with that. This is, we're going to make sure that it's well timed. I'm going to have some conversations with them, but I'm going to bring in an expert to deliver in that realm. But there's a point person there that's running through that, right? So whether that's the client partner or if a firm names a client relationship manager, there's different ways that I've seen that structured and different ways I've seen it structured effectively, right? It's not just like there's only one way to do it right.
Yeah.
But I think from a client perspective, it's great that a team is working on my stuff. And I don't mind if someone's telling me to input my payroll hours and somebody else is asking for my, my 1098 forms or whatever else I've got. But I need to know, who do I go to? Who am I talking to when it comes to the strategic end of what's going on? Who's going to review the tax return and talk about, hey, what do you got coming on next year? You're going to have to make some alterations with retirement planning and HSA and blah, 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 whatever those things may be. So I need to have that point person that's really there and is free, I believe, free of a lot of other duties. So their focus is, how are we helping them? How do we identify that next opportunity, right? Um, you know this from your years of experience, not that you're old, Casey, but the things that get measured matter
Yes.
and are managed and are executed against. And so if Will is the advisory lead, but is also the main tax return reviewer and the main person on 3 other things, uh, yeah, we're not going to see a whole lot of progress on the advisory stuff.
Yeah.
Just to be super technical there with the word stuff. Careful when you use that one. Because I've got a bunch of other things that are heavily measured and have deadlines and are required. So we've got to ask, how do we free up the time and capacity, right? And that's where we can use technology. We can choose to hire and delegate and have more precise job roles and be okay with, hey, this is what I got someone coming in to do this kind of uh, input and execution and review work, and we're not just spreading that to everybody. It's going through 1 or 2 people because I need to pull Casey out of that so she can focus on the advisory elements.
Yeah, you said something there too about having more specific job. I forget if you said titles or descriptions, but both, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with that kind of comes swim lanes, right? Of letting people know what it is that they do, which I think provides people with better job satisfaction too, because they're not spread thin. They can grow and develop hard and soft skills relative to what you're asking them to do. It's interesting to me because I do feel like in the short amount of time that I have been in the accounting industry, um, I've subscribed to a number of newsletters and try to keep my pulse on the things that people are talking about, what's important, what's being published in trade newsletters and or
Mm-hmm.
being talked about at large trade shows. And it's not uncommon that I just see a lot of business advice. And I see things being talked about that I've known for a long time in my career in tech, of just understanding that one that you just touched on is the job descriptions, subscription pricing. Even I was like, that's very
Mm-hmm.
tech centric, and we're trying to adopt that or push that into accounting. Which I bring that up too because you mentioned how um, people can mistakenly look at advisory as a capacity relief and not a growth mechanism. And you feel similarly to execution or application of fixed fee or subscription pricing, that it's not solving the root problem here.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you are correct. I think that we see more accounting firms starting to look at business operational models in other industries and go, you know what, we're still special, but it doesn't mean we can't use what's really good
Yeah.
in the other professions. I think on the top end of the market space with more PE coming in, we're continuing to see that, right? Firm structures have to change,
Yeah.
and so now we're looking at a PE firm doesn't want to come into and leave a 12 partner vote by committee operational model and say, hey, we're really going to grow our efficiency and bottom line through this. I'm not a PE expert. I don't want to try to pretend to be one, but just in conversations with PE experts in the profession, it's been, hey, they want to shift the operational model. Who's in charge? Who's running things? How do we view things? And I think those are, even if you don't want to sniff PE, that's fine. Uh, but and you've got a smaller firm, there's still good things we can learn from that and say, if we've got really strong vertical lanes of where people are running with their job description and duties, I have a more clear growth pattern for my team. And I think that it makes us have better clarity when it comes to hiring and expectations. And now I also have a better understanding of what our real capacity is. When I've got 5 people, KC, that all do everything,
Yeah.
how on earth do I measure capacity? How do I consistently set priority? How do I bring someone new in when somebody retires or leaves, and either they're going to drown or they're going to swallow the fire hose? Those really the only 2 choices? I don't think so. And so I think we've got to look at some of the job duties differently from a success of the employee perspective, from a clarity of insight perspective from the firm. And when we have those together, now we can look at what's the client opportunity and how do we leverage the client opportunity and what do we have the scale to go achieve.
I love that. I think at the end of the day, to your point, all of these things are meant to help them achieve their goals, whether it's a goal specific to the firm or them as a partner, owner, CEO, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like it's not uncommon that one of those goals is just a better work-life balance, more time with family, more time for hobbies, whatever it might be. Um, and I feel like, and tell me if you feel that this is still rather common, that the industry hasn't broken the I don't want to say it's a stereotype, but the unfortunate norm that there's a badge of honor for working X amount of
Yeah.
hours. And it's like, no, like I'm really passionate about, okay, well, if I outside Canopy Casey is taking care of her health, having fun with her family, eating good food, seeing the sun, that I
Mm-hmm.
can show up to work a more productive, effective individual contributor, whether that's directly to like output of tasks or like contributing to the morale of the team and ensuring that like we all want to show up at work and be
Yeah.
contributing adults. Like there's at
Yeah.
the end of the day, that has huge value.
Absolutely, Casey. And I think we've got to shift the mentality away from hours entirely
Yeah.
to production.
Yes.
And so even now, if you, I spend a decent amount of time on LinkedIn, but it, while many are still in the hours and billable hours, and hey, you got to put in 60 a week during tax season, doesn't matter. That's just part of what we do. It's part of what makes us cool. You've also got the opposite end of the spectrum that goes, well, the only way to counter that is to talk about how I'm not working. So let that sink in for a minute. So what does the person new in the industry come in and look and they see this, hey, there's this raging debate about hours and how many you should work or how few you should have to work. But what if neither of those are the answer? What if the answer is really about, hey, our firm has goals for the firm, which should support the goals of the owners? And if the owners have good, healthy goals, employees coming in are going to be able to achieve their needs from what they have.
Good
And
caveat there, by the way.
at the at the end of the day, all of these goals come down to money.
Mm. Yeah.
Uh, not more. But hey, I want to be able to spend time with my family. Doing what?
Yeah.
Sitting in a cardboard box watching TV or traveling? Because those two things take different amount of money. So
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, all the goals come down to we've got to be able to financially afford those things, right? Some are going to argue with me that my goal is to help other people. Yes, that's going to be one of your goals, but some of your personal goals to be achieved, even as an owner, it takes finances to get those things done. I don't think you should be afraid of that answer.
Yeah.
So then we look at that and say, well,
You
how do
don't
we
have to
achieve?
be a martyr to the cause either.
No, that's
Yeah.
right. So how do we earn enough revenue to meet those goals? Well, I don't have enough time and I don't like doing all this data entry work. So I've got to outsource that to either technology or people. Okay, fantastic. Now we're going to bring those in and bring it into play. Well, now my question is this: how are we going to measure that? And if it's just all about the hours, then I'm in a no-win situation. Whether I'm about I want to work as few hours as possible, or I want to work as many hours as I can because I think that's what we should do because we're responsible accountants. The
Or
hours
especially if
aren't
you're,
the answer.
yeah, and especially
It's
with the billable hour, because then it's like, well, if all of my goals come down to money, how do I get more money? I bill
right.
more hours. And it's like, but especially with AI now, like even myself, I hit a point in the last month and a half maybe where I finally was like, I'm all in. I'm in Chat GPT every day. I finally found a way to help it optimize some of the things I do. Not everything yet. But I finished a project on Monday in a matter of hours that would have taken me a week or more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about that of like, okay, to your point of like measuring output and saying if it gets you there faster, that does not mean you charge the billable hours. No, you
Right.
delivered the thing.
Right. When we focus on production, especially in
Mhm.
line with certain goals, that's when there's more intrinsic opportunity that's there from technology or from learning new things or from sharing and connecting with teammates, right? Because now all of a sudden I'm getting things done faster. We're together, we're getting more things done. And now we can sit down and say, if we're meeting our goals, great. I just had a conversation with a firm owner about Fridays in the summer. Do I give them off? Do I not? How do we feel about that? What if they
How
worked
do you
X
want
amount
to
of
do? Just
hours?
do it.
And this is the
Yeah.
conversation I had is don't worry about the hours. This is about
Mhm.
production. What needs to get done for you to achieve your goals? If we're getting it done, great. Take the
Yeah,
time
and if
off.
that's in line with your values as a firm too, and even retaining talent in this type of market. Fridays off in the summer? Heck yeah. If you can
Mhm.
balance both, achieve both, why not?
Right, right,
I love it.
right. But I think we get there by having a production focus that's in line with what are the goals we're trying to achieve. And if we don't think about the goals we're trying to achieve as a firm, then anything that helps us get more efficient, we're just going to try to keep cramming more stuff in the bag.
Mhm.
And then you sit and wonder, why aren't my staff happy? Because I've given them more tools. Yeah, but we're not connecting things to what we're trying to achieve. And they feel like it's just, the never ending story. Um,
Yeah.
so,
Oh, I think that's a great note to end on, and maybe it can be summarized. Maybe our entire conversation can be summarized by um, the impact good, healthy. You said that, and I was like, ooh, I'm glad he qualified that. Good,
mhm.
healthy goals have on a firm's production.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. Thanks again, Will.
Yeah, you're welcome, Casey. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today.